Hey, good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here with your off-season edition of the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for Monday, January the 14th, 2019. Hope you're doing well. Got a lot to talk about today. Some interesting things going on in the world of what I look for in the off-season in regards to the upcoming hurricane season. We'll take a look at the latest SOI, sea surface temperature anomalies, subsurface temperatures, things like that. Some interesting developments going on. And I was reading some things over on Storm 2K's message board today, earlier this morning. A lot of talk about maybe this El Nino really not having much bite, if you will. In fact, one of the latest reports from, I think it was the Climate Prediction Center, indicating that even if the El Nino were to develop, it really wouldn't have much of an impact. It would be a weak event, and therefore they are not anticipating much in the way of any high-impact global impacts from the phenomenon. So that's interesting. Another failed El Nino, perhaps. All right, well, let's get on with it. First of all, just a real quick reminder, I am literally supported right now from patrons at Patreon. And I haven't mentioned this in a while, but I thought I would. So much like public radio, where a few people overall support it and it's available to everybody, the group of folks sitting around 119, 120, it oscillates back and forth. Those are the folks that are behind supporting me in the off season, and I appreciate it. And if you want to become a patron, that's how you do so. So thank you all very much. And let's get on with it, shall we? All right, the SOI, look at this. It's really dipped as of late, and really not a surprise. It's going to have its ups and downs, and right now it's in a downturn overall. And this is going to send sort of a cattle prod through the system, so to speak, and will trigger big troughing in the eastern part of the United States. Cold air is going to pour in. Really not concerned about this being the beginning of a negative trend where we kick off more of this El Nino going forward. The Southern Oscillation Index helping to really understand the pressure pattern across the tropical Pacific. And even though it's turning negative generally, you can see that trend there. Still the 90-day, holding on at 2.58. The 30-day is taking a hit, and these daily values are kind of low, but nothing that suggests we're plowing into the pattern where the atmosphere and the ocean couple, and we get this major El Nino developing. It's a little bit late for that, in my opinion. All right, so this is interesting. It's time to look at the NOAA-NESDIS sea surface temperature anomalies for today. And, of course, because of the government shutdown, as they mentioned in here, the site is limited. So when you go and you click on these different parts of it, let's refresh this, actually, because I think it's updated. Yep, so like if I want to click on Western Hemisphere, no dice. So what I did is I went in and I grabbed that thumbnail, if you will, and I blew it up in Photoshop so we can at least analyze something. It's my way around the government shutdown. So what do we see? Well, first of all, it's a low-res picture, and it's the whole globe stretched out in Mercator projection. But we see the warmth in the Pacific, not overwhelming. None of the anomalies are over here on the far right-hand side. So, warm, neutral to very weak El Nino conditions. But look at what's happening in the Atlantic. Look at this. And I will be able to click on some of those regions on the other map. I'll show you in just a moment. But that's not a cold look to the Atlantic overall. And you can see that, if we look, there's a few cold pockets in there relative to average, but the main development region, certainly, for January, not running cold. It's running a little bit above the long-term average. And this is the one good thing, is you can actually click on these different areas, and these do work for whatever reason. So there you go. This is updated today. There's the 14th. There's the main development region, and you can see as clearly as I can, especially the eastern part of it, and then even up here stretching into the northeast Atlantic, the far eastern Atlantic, off the Iberian Peninsula there, Spain and Portugal. things are warm relative to average. They're not cold. Remember, we saw that a lot last year. Now, this is just January 14th. Making a lot of it out of this right now is senseless, but it's one of the things that I will certainly be keeping an eye on as we go forward. All right, so looking done with this, looking at the subsurface, check out this animation here. This goes back to November. We go through December, and the El Nino at the subsurface looked like it was really going to try to take off. Lots and lots of subsurface, very strong positive anomalies through here. But then look what's happened. It's eroded away so that when this last updated on the 6th, there's always going to be a several-day lag. Nothing to do with the government shutdown. It's always going to be a few days lag. But look what's happened. We've really eroded away the overall warm look, especially in the eastern Pacific, and there's no reinforcing shot despite a fairly strong westerly wind burst period in the West Pacific. This El Nino just doesn't look like it's really going to do much, if anything at all, and probably gradually fade out towards neutral to warm neutral conditions by the time we get to the hurricane season. And so now that the animation has completed, look, in the far western Pacific, it's right where it should be. And most of the rest of the tropical Pacific here, there's just very little subsurface warmth compared to where we were. And again, this to me is the key. No major reinforcing shot coming in from the Westpac despite this period here, and we can see that. Let's switch to this real quick. All of this represented westerly winds, okay, down in the lower levels of the atmosphere, and even that was not enough to trigger more of a strong positive INSO at the subsurface or whatever. You know what I mean? We didn't get a lot of subsurface warming despite that period here that we can see of, this was really strong. All of these colors in here represent westerly anomalies. And then look what's happening in the GFS here. Let's change to maybe yellow. Forecasting a pretty good bout of trade winds coming up between now and the next several days. So the hit, if you will, to the overall pattern, where did it go? I already got rid of it. That's fine. Suggests that this is about as much as we're going to see. So I think that's a really interesting development, that we're chiseling away at any chance of a major El Nino, and I keep teasing this slide. So this is from the Climate Prediction Center International Research Institute, and it's a neat little graph to look at, and I like to focus over here. August, September, October, peak of the hurricane season. What's favored as of now? Neutral, the gray. Not quite 50% probability yet, but it is favored over a warm event. And then, of course, La Nina doesn't seem likely at this point. So you can just follow the trend line. Generally speaking, as we get to the warmer months of the northern hemisphere coming up, and we got to get through winter first. We're going to touch upon that towards the end here. The trend goes down, at least on this. Things change. I know that, and sometimes this isn't very helpful, especially this time of year. But it's good guidance overall. And again, I point back to this, and I say, yeah, the future looks like that supports this going forward, with a growing chance of this neutral signal winning out once we get to the hurricane season. Alrighty, so we looked at this again real quick, looking like, generally speaking, strong trade winds coming up here. And here's, it's kind of, we're not seeing any reds in the Atlantic. This represents the eastern part of the Atlantic Basin, roughly. But that's not a strong signal. In other words, the trades are not roaring across the main development region. And, look, we've seen a few periods here of lighter trade winds overall, a relaxation. So very interesting things as we move forward. February, March, April, May. Then after that, season begins. It's not that far away. And I really like tracking these things in the off season. I'm very grateful that these tools are available. Just another perspective of it, the weekly updated Reynolds method. And this, too, shows you what I was talking about. Not a bad look in terms of cold to the Atlantic Multi-Decadal Oscillation, the AMO. This is not all filled in with cold anomalies. Instead, they're all positive, all the way up from off the coast of the British Isles up here, down the eastern Atlantic and into the eastern main development region. Subtropics, yep, kind of warmer than average over the colder deep tropics, but, oh well. It's interesting, and we'll see how this progresses through the next several months. It can change quickly, absolutely, but right now, this certainly has at least a half of an eyebrow raised from yours truly. Alrighty, so looking at the Gulf of Mexico, remember I was remarking about this the other day. That is the 26 degrees Celsius line right there, 26C, which is about 79.5 Fahrenheit, still poking its way up into the southeast Gulf, parts of the Florida Straits over here, and then, yep, even some 27C, roughly 81 Fahrenheit. I just think that's pretty remarkable. We're getting ready to get a pretty good cold shot coming in where we're going to blast down some Arctic air. We call that cold air advection, the lateral movement or horizontal movement of air, and it spills out. Cold air is dense and thick, and it spills out and moves much like syrup spilled on a table or something like that. It oozes and whatever, and so it'll chisel away at this a little bit. But I find that to be very interesting, how long into the winter season that loop current, I guess, being injected into the Gulf from the Caribbean has held on. In the meantime, it has cooled off here in my neck of the woods. I'm in Wilmington. So we've chiseled away some of those 25, 26 degrees Celsius isotherms in there. And that'll continue because we're definitely going to get some very cold air intrusion coming down for probably a fairly sustained period. So we're going to knock down these sea surface temperatures. But there's still a lot of energy there. And even though I don't see it yet, I'm getting ready to segue into the lower 48 part of the discussion. There's still enough energy out there, some of those anomalies running above the long-term average quite a bit, that I still think we're going to see a significant winter storm, a big coastal storm, or two before February and March, maybe even January, are over. All right, so let's transition over to lower 48 weather. Part of the other side of what I do in my off-season discussion, just keeping you aware of what's happening, and I'm always on the lookout for a big-ticket weather event, something that I can get to. Remember, being funded, through the patrons, I'm not sitting on six figures where I can just go anywhere, but it is nice to be able to get out and maybe go up to the Northeast. My favorite area, honestly, for blizzards and whatnot, is southeast Massachusetts, from Scituate down to Cape Cod, eastern Long Island. That's probably my number 2 area. Jersey's number 3. I like good snow in the Carolinas, my neck of the woods, but boy, those New England winters up here, I long for that. I'm waiting for that. Those are amazing. So that's what I'm on the lookout for. Any candidates? Well, this, before we get started on all of that, is definitely good news in one respect for California. Tons and tons of moisture coming in with this powerful storm coming off the Pacific. And this is a little bit of, what you get when you have that El Nino look. A more stormy pattern for the West Coast. You can see this energy coming in further to the south. Really, really good news for the snowpack. But it will come with hazards. Mudslides, especially in the burn scar areas. Very heavy snow. Travel will be difficult. So any viewers out there in the West, hey, take the blessings of all the moisture, but just be careful. Remember, the weather is bigger than we are on any given day, and you just got to be mindful. This is good news to see, but you got to respect what's happening. Elsewhere, this winter storm is exiting. Brought a lot of snow to portions of Missouri, a little bit of ice and snow to parts of the Carolinas, and then finally it dumped some up on the mid-Atlantic. But no major, big-time, hype machine, everybody goes crazy winter storms just yet. But we're getting there. It's almost mid-January, And you can see the map is relatively clear. Most of the activity, this is a child abduction emergency. That's what that color is for. Non-weather related. But out west, that's where most of the action is. And eventually, I think we're going to see some more over here. But I'm just not seeing the signal of a major mark goes out in it type storm. When I'm ready to go, then you know it's a big time storm. So we can see that here. Courtesy of Tropical Tidbits here from the ECMWF. Figured I'd show you that today. So this will show us the 500 millibar heights and your surface features at the surface. Of course, your low pressures, your high pressures. And this is valid tomorrow morning. So Tuesday morning, generally northwest flow coming out of Canada over here with a lot of the source region. Maybe up off the Pacific, not really true Arctic air. But remember what I've been saying about these deep longitudinal troughs that carve like that? Well, watch what happens as I go through these different windows here. This is 24 hours. This is Tuesday. Here's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, getting towards the weekend here. And notice these heights really starting to lower up here in Canada as the Arctic invasion is about to begin. This is on Saturday. A storm system starts to organize here out of the plains into Arkansas and parts of the deep south. And then finally on Sunday, there's that look. There you go. Check that out. When you follow the flow here coming right out of Canada, that's going to funnel that cold air directly from the source regions way up here. That's not coming off the Pacific Ocean, folks. That is your cross-polar flow, Arctic air, real bitter, a lot of energy with it, and a lot of potential once this sets up. Then you can see this low-pressure area here coming out of the Carolinas for a stormy pattern, but it's just not quite there yet. This is 6 days out. This is on Monday morning, so about a week away. There's your very sharp amplified trough in the east. More storminess trying to set up out west. Progressive pattern as these waves go by, if you will. And I don't see it yet in the modeling. We're close, but you know how it is. You got to have everything kind of lined up before you can get really excited about these big East Coast storms. But we got to temper that. When people get excited about hurricanes, people get all upset, and rightfully so. And even with these big winter storms and these big Arctic outbreaks, people like snow, you like that picturesque scene. But some of these winter storms, the last one took several lives. I think most of it was because of car accidents, but you got to kind of temper the excitement of some maybe brutal winter weather, some exciting winter weather, with the fact, again, like I said, the weather is bigger than any of us. So we just, keep that in the back of your mind. Those of you wanting snow and a big raging blizzard, it does come with a cost. So we're getting there. The pattern's going to set up much like we see when we get to August and September. The pattern gets there. The water temperatures are good. The upper atmosphere is cooperative. And then we see what the hurricane season does, with the peak being in September. I like the analogy of the peak of the winter storm season really going through February and into early March. So there you go. Covered a lot today. Hey, I'm feeling better. I think you can tell this is probably the most energy. My voice is back. Things are going really, really well. So real quick, the National Tropical Weather Conference down in South Padre Island. If you can in any way attend that, I want to talk about it, and I will talk about it over the next couple of weeks. Registration is open. I will be a presenter. Josh Morgerman will be there as well. I believe Ginger Z from ABC has been invited. There are lots of conferences in the country. The National Hurricane Conference, a big preparatory conference, mitigation, etc., for emergency managers especially, and the planners and disaster preparedness and recovery, etc. Florida Governor's Conference, another fantastic one. I believe it's down in Broward County each year. But there's something about the National Tropical Weather Conference. Alex and Tim, who put it together, a couple of the best people you'll ever meet. But the intimacy of it, as a presenter, I'm honored to be able to present and show the work that I've done and discuss some of the findings. But boy, I feel like it's the Academy Awards, if you will. And I'm one of the recipients or something, and I get to mingle with other people that are of greatness, if you know what I'm saying. You know, being able to literally hang out and chat with some of these powerhouse people, you know, between Dr. Klotzbach, like I said, Josh Morgerman, folks from the Hurricane Hunters, people in broadcast media that you probably see and hear a lot about on Twitter. They're all there, and there's not 2,000 people. I know that'd be great for the conference, but it's definitely, in terms of its value of being able to interact and really get to know people, ask questions you've always wanted to ask, National Tropical Weather Conference is the place to go for that. In fact, let me just pull that up real quick, if this will let me. I don't know if it will. No, I don't have it queued up. It's Hurricane Center Live. I'll do it next Monday, I promise. Here I am teasing it, and I don't have the URL pulled up. You can just Google NTWC, National Tropical Weather Conference, or it's HurricaneCenterLive.com. That's their address. That's coming up in April, the early part of April, and I can't wait. It's going to be fantastic. All right, well, that is it from me for today. I appreciate you tuning in. Winter's coming back. You know, the old memes will come out. Brace yourselves, winter's coming, so forth and so on. Pattern's going to be there. Cold air, etc. Now we see if the big-time coastal storms will be there, and if so, I'll be out in it. Kind of my version of spring training as to baseball is, right? This will be to hurricane season. I like to use these winter events to sort of stay warmed up. All right? That's it from me. Thanks for tuning in. I am Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com. I'll be back with you next Monday unless something comes along between now and then. Have a great week between now and then. I'll talk to you next week. Oh, try again. Bye. Well, I screwed it up again. Take 3. I'm out. See y'all later.